tourism economy, political regulation, and civilizational development. You can adjust the language according to your preference. Choose the program that suits your needs from the playlist. Customize the subtitle position on your laptop, and adjust the video speed with the slider to suit your needs and comfort. Let's grow together through your subscribe and like on this video.
Modern tourism is a global system composed of economic structures, political frameworks, cultural heritage, and environmental assets. It consists not only of leisure activities, but also of regulatory institutions, international agreements, and financial mechanisms that support mobility across continents. Tourism, as well as trade and infrastructure development, plays a decisive role in national prosperity. To fully understand tourism economics, one must develop a deep comprehension of how tourism revenue is generated, distributed, and regulated. Tourism policy often refers to laws and guidelines concerning land use, taxation, environmental protection, and international mobility. This documentary is structured in clear passages, each allotted to a specific dimension of tourism, economic production, political regulation, environmental sustainability, and historical evolution. What remains central is the recognition that tourism is both an opportunity and a responsibility. Governments must properly regulate tourism markets to prevent exploitation, environmental damage, and chaotic growth. Regulatory skills must be continuously sharpened to respond to new global challenges. Policies must be updated regularly, ensuring that tourism development remains available to investors while protecting communities in wide geographical regions. Authorities often highlight essential legal terms in tourism contracts to prevent misinterpretation. When evaluating policy reports, decision-makers sometimes practice skimming to gain a quick impression before conducting a detailed analysis. However, surface reading is insufficient. Instead, leaders must develop the ability to assess the broader context surrounding tourism investments. They must determine risks, draw policy inferences, and treat economic, social, and environmental factors as equally valuable components of national development. Tourism infrastructure includes transportation networks, hospitality systems, and supply chain delivery mechanisms. Each portion of the tourism economy requires coordination between the public and private sectors. Before implementing reforms, governments typically provide a policy outline in brief executive summaries. The goal is to accomplish measurable improvements in tourism performance. A public notice may be issued to inform stakeholders of regulatory changes. Analysts observe economic patterns and attempt to convey insights to policymakers. Aside from leisure travel, tourism includes medical tourism, educational exchanges, and heritage preservation programs. In the current global environment, tourism regulation must balance economic growth with sustainability. Managing tourism growth requires controlling the remaining environmental capacity of destinations. The pace of expansion must not turn into an uncontrolled rush toward short-term profit. Governments must demonstrate that sustainability commitments are not merely implied, but actively enforced. Tourism revenue should correspond with environmental protection investments. In formal communication, ministries send official letter statements clarifying that neither economic ambition nor environmental protection should be sacrificed. When reviewing data, policymakers may draw conclusions that are inferred from visitor statistics, except in cases of statistical exception. States must accept responsibility for ensuring tourism benefits are distributed fairly. International tourism organizations provide recognition to destinations that deserve acknowledgement for sustainable practices. Economic analysts attempt to figure out how tourism revenue fluctuates across seasons. Infrastructure requires constant repair and modernization. Every ministry intends to improve competitiveness, but many officials remain deeply concerned about overdevelopment. Crises may occur occasionally, and economic risks are often inferred from early warning indicators. Financial experts provide advice to ensure there is plenty of liquidity to overcome downturns. Global influences such as climate change, geopolitical tensions, and technological disruption require leaders to act wisely. Nations must not entirely rely on tourism alone. They must engage all economic senses when conducting strategic planning. Cultural tourism frequently involves ancient monuments discovered through archaeological discovery. The act of discovering lost civilizations has historically increased tourism interest. New tourism markets emerged after heritage sites were carefully preserved. Without regulation, these sites could be damaged. Scientific evidence allows historians to recognize authentic artifacts and determine appropriate restoration methods. Beneath the surface of archaeological sites, cultural layers maintain symbolic meaning, often preserved due to natural protection. In spite of political conflicts and regardless of economic fluctuations, cultural tourism continues to expand. Modern tourism increasingly relies on sophisticated technology, even in solitary destinations. The advent of ecotourism occurred in successive waves as environmental awareness grew. Comparative environmental studies, or comparative ecological analysis, evaluate the impact of tourism. Despite climate challenges, some coastal regions remain attractive, even when partially submerged during storms. Many tourism zones are located in hilly regions or scenic peninsulas overlooking blue lagoons. Natural beauty may be affected by industrial impurities, requiring environmental prevention policies. Environmental damage demands accountability and sometimes financial retribution. Tourism festivals may include performances featuring a traditional clown, symbolic incense, and cultural rites. Over the past century, tourism economies have shifted from purely rural landscapes toward major urban hubs. The countryside once dominated hospitality services, but industrialization gradually altered that balance. Agricultural lands, including prairies, marshes, and extensive acres, were transformed by infrastructure projects such as the railroad. As transportation improved, pioneers settled new areas. Landowners sought to purchase modern equipment, and tourism holdings were eventually consolidated. Economic transformation was not without crises. Some ranches were abandoned, and communities headed toward cities. Yet tourism became a source of new prosperity. Tourism did not originate in isolation. It developed from early trade routes, maritime exploration, and cross-continental exchanges. Early merchants traveled vast distances, crossing deserts at daybreak, participating in communal festivities, and forming diplomatic agreement structures that later influenced tourism corridors. The political structure of travel corresponds with transportation infrastructure. As railroad systems expanded, governments began to impose regulatory taxes and safety standards with increasing regularity. These regulations required precise coordination as long as economic growth remained sustainable. Urban centers grew rapidly, and tourism activities amounted to significant portions of national revenue. The transformation from agricultural to industrial economies created massive opportunities, yet also chaotic development patterns in some regions. The Industrial Revolution dramatically shifted economic priorities. Rural populations gradually moved from rural settlements toward urban districts seeking employment in manufacturing and industrial labor sectors. Many farming communities were abandoned, while others were gradually transformed into tourism-oriented heritage sites. Young workers seeking economic stability followed the growing trend toward urban employment. Tourism economists observed that income inequality could differ across regions. Some areas experienced a decline, while others achieved remarkable prosperity. In regions where agriculture became constricted and opportunities were disappearing, tourism provided an alternative pathway toward economic survival. Natural tourism also relies on geological history. Amber, a semi-precious substance, is formed from tree resin that became fossilized over millions of years. These fossilized remains often preserve insects that are now extinct, leaving delicate impressions of ferns and ancient ecosystems. Unlike synthetic replacements, natural amber retains inclusions that remain entirely intact. These inclusions are sometimes strikingly visible, demonstrating exquisite natural preservation. Over time, tree resin hardened, becoming a valuable tourism artifact. Archaeologists carefully trace the origin of such substances, studying how they were buried near lagoon systems or shores, gradually transformed by geological pressure. As sediments accumulated, organic materials were converted into lignite, demonstrating how environmental transformation occurs over time. Cultural tourism frequently showcases traditional craft industries, including dyeing, weaving, and pottery production. Ancient textiles were colored using natural dyes derived from plants such as saffron/turmeric, carefully obtained and cultivated. These natural dyes were often non-fading, though exposure to sunlight could cause colors to fade, leaving a subtle tinge. Over centuries, techniques were refined to create durable tapestry designs and richly woven fabrics. The textile industry evolved, reaching advanced levels of chemical sophistication. Synthetic dyestuffs eventually superseded natural pigments, offering greater resistance to environmental exposure. Nevertheless, traditional craftsmanship remains an attractive tourism asset, particularly when presented through immersive workshops. Tourism often explores the rise and fall of empires. Many civilizations were founded near fertile river systems and later expanded across continents. Some cities were eventually submerged or buried beneath sediment layers. Political historians examine how settlements were established, how territories were conquered, and how expansions were fueled by ambition and economic need. Exploration voyages were often financed by merchant groups who petitioned royal courts for support. Some expeditions were initially rebuffed, yet eventually secured funding. As explorers moved westward, their ships navigated complex nautical routes, encountering indigenous societies whose existence contradicted earlier assumptions. These historical voyages reshaped global tourism patterns. Political regulation of tourism requires legal oversight. National court systems evaluate disputes, and judges may conduct hearings regarding environmental damage or contractual violations. Tourism legislation must be clear, otherwise, agreements may unravel, creating economic instability. Regulatory frameworks must fit local economic conditions and protect both investors and communities. When crises occur, policymakers must proceed cautiously. Overexpansion may lead to environmental degradation, financial debt, and social deprivation. Tourism tax fees must be transparent. If regulations are overly restrictive, entrepreneurs may become hesitant to invest. Balanced regulation remains essential. Environmental sustainability remains central to tourism governance. Hurricanes, severe storms, and prolonged droughts threaten coastal destinations. Climate change has increased the frequency of natural disturbances. Rising temperatures may lead to ecosystem deterioration, coral reef bleaching, and habitat loss. Governments must invest in infrastructure capable of withstanding environmental stress. Coastal barriers, insulating materials, and renewable energy systems reduce long-term damage. Failure to act may result in economic collapse and irreversible biodiversity loss. Environmental protection is not optional, it is essential for tourism survival.